watching this recording, just give me one moment to do a quick sound check. I figured today we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about the Metropolitan Police in London, the current, the decision that they made regarding disclosure of membership. Yes, we're still good. Okay. So let's switch this to public. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about some interesting articles I noted and how they affect Freemasonry, including something I just discovered yesterday. January is International Quality of Life Month. In my humble opinion, Freemasonry absolutely improves people's quality of life. If you want to define quality of life as mental, physical, social, hell, I suppose you could even call it financial health in a way. Though I would say Freemasonry, what it helps improve is a quality of life for people via their social or their social health. So I hope you'll take a moment. Please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. That helps big time with other people finding the channel and, you know, growing the algorithm. Right now, we are, if you look at our analytics on the YouTube, in terms of our audience, 60% of the people watching this channel are not subscribed, or 57.9%. 42.1% are subscribed. So please subscribe. It helps out big time. My day is going well. Dixon, I hope you're doing well also. Thank you for being here. Lungy Legend, bringing the politics in early. This channel is about Freemasonry. Having said that, you know, people talk about other things on the stream, and everybody's welcome to their opinions on American politics. I will say personally, and this is me speaking personally, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but there are many Masons who would disagree with me and who are fans. It's nice to see you too. I hope that you're doing well. Let's give it some time. Let's see who joins. As always, jump in the chat, say hello. Any thoughts you have, positive, negative, or neutral on Freemasonry, I'd love to hear them. The first hour, I don't have any specific topics. Rather, I just hang out and chat about whatever. It's the second hour, or about 60 minutes in, where I start on specific topics. Though that's relative, you know, sometimes I'll start on topics earlier, sometimes I'll start on them later. It just depends on how the chat is going. I've heard that joke before, so it's not original to you. By the way, I'm going to call you Legend. Please hit the like button and please hit the subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Well, I mean, thank you, Starboy the Knight. If you do love me, you'll hit the like button and the subscribe button. And for now, we're going to give it some time and just wait to see who joins. And please don't forget to put in your calendars January 21st, 2026. So in a week, I guess it would officially be a week as of today, 24-hour live stream. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be streaming on a couple different platforms, so I hope that you will check it out. What's my dream? I have a few different dreams, Starboy, but the main dream I have is to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession and to see Freemasonry grow. So there you go. And my dream right now is to have you hit the like and subscribe button. Well, I think I'm real. I mean, whether I am real or not, I guess I don't know, but I think I'm real. I would be willing to bet money that I am real, in point of fact. Hello, Herzen Ritter. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. By the way, because I have the 24-hour live stream, I'm going to be practicing some things. Maybe you might be interested. I'm probably going to do a test run of the stream on the 20 on Sunday the 18th. So be prepared for that. There's going to be a test run. It's not going to be a 24-hour stream. Rather, I'm going to try streaming on multiple platforms at the same time. By doing so, my hope is I'll be able to grow my presence not simply on YouTube, but on other platforms, social media, etc., etc. There is a lot of space between the atoms. That is true. I forget how it actually works. I remember reading somewhere like if you increased the nucleus of an atom to the size of a soccer ball, then the electrons would be orbiting um, the space of like a baseball field or something, if I recall correctly. I might be getting that number wrong, but there absolutely is a lot of space between the atoms. We do not. Freemasons do not pray to any deity because Freemasonry is not a religion. I suppose you could say Freemasons have invocations, but it's not to the Antichrist. Freemasonry is not satanic, nor is it about the Antichrist. I think Canada is incredible. I would say Canada is superior to the United States, but of course I'm Canadian, so of course I would say that. Canada is the greatest country in the world, in part because we have the greatest neighbors in the world. I love the United States, but I much prefer to live in Canada. Um, there is no spoon. Yes, there is no spoon. That is true. There are. I never met any Zoroastrian Freemasons. I'm sure they exist. I've never met any. I've met um, Wiccan Freemasons a couple of times. I've met Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, Indigenous, or First Nations, obviously. A lot of them are coming into Canada. That's why Save Third Country came up, for the record. Um, well, I don't know what the grand compass symbol is. I assume you mean the square and compass. Why does anybody have rituals since the dawn of time? It's to form bonds of brotherhood or form bonds through shared experiences. The reason why, whether it be a fraternity, whether it be the military, whether it be guys going out for guys' night out will sometimes develop their own rituals or like traditions, and there's another word to describe it. It's to cement the bonds of brotherhood. Serene, you ask a lot of the same questions over and over again, and you seem not to accept my answers, which makes me think you'll never accept anything I say, which makes me wonder what you're doing here. Um, They do exist. I have met them. I've actually interviewed a couple of them. There's the Order of Women Freemasons, which is, I mean, it's primarily out of England, though it does exist in Ontario as well. There's also Eastern Star, by the way, which is for men and women, and there is also um, Rainbow for young women, and there's Co-Masonry, which is a liberal order, so it's not always recognized. I've met them. I consider them part of the Masonic family. Well, I speak good of it because I love it, and I've never seen, witnessed anything that would confirm the bad reputation of it. Now, if you believe the bad reputation, then so be it. Um, all I can say is you can either, you know, base your beliefs on Freemasonry upon my almost 20 years of experience and thousands of meetings around the world, or you can base it on what you think. Even the question you asked above, when you say, um, where was it? Right. Do Freemasons pray to the Antichrist as their deity? I'm pretty sure you already asked me that a few streams ago. The answer is no, right? Again, Freemasonry, there are invocations, but they're invocations to the Supreme Being, and there is no single Supreme Being. It's every individual Mason's belief. So if you're Christian, you'll be, invoking to, I guess, Jesus. If you're Muslim, it'd be Allah. It's internal. It's whatever you happen to believe, right? That's why we don't use specific religious terminology, because Freemasonry is not a religion and is welcome to men of different faiths and different beliefs. Well, Serene, I don't think you would want to join Freemasonry because it sounds like you have very misunderstandings about what it is. You do not have to sacrifice your faithfulness to God. I've told you that before as well, but it seems like you don't believe me. So if you don't believe me, then you don't believe me. Um, yes, it is a leap of faith. So there are women Freemasons. Now, they're usually, you can best be described them as irregular in that usually there is not like meetings. Like I can't visit an Order of Women Freemasons lodge, vice versa. They do meet in our temples here in Ontario and around the world, or I mean it's their temples as well, right? But they do meet in Masonic temples. But what I would say is, how would I put it? Like they're a valuable part of the Masonic craft, they're an important part of the Masonic craft, and I do think one of the biggest mistakes we made within Freemasonry over the years was not giving enough attention to or showing enough kind of brotherly love, if you will, for the Order of Women Freemasons and our women Masons. We are changing that, especially in Ontario. A few years ago, they did a whole presentation at a Day of Masonry, and it was really, really good. Um, The Shriners are Freemasons. Um, so if to be a Shriner, you must first be a Freemason, and then you can join the Shrine. It's one of the Masonic appendant bodies. They do a lot of excellent work in the community for charity, they do a lot of great stuff. So, yeah. They don't just ride around in little cars with funny hats. They do that as well. But they are a very valuable part of Freemasonry and a very valuable part of the communities in which they are located. Um, I got very wide teeth, I know. Please hit like and subscribe nonetheless. What's wrong with my what's wrong with my breath? How could you even tell? My breath is fine. Honestly, part of the problem is this light. I think it makes my teeth look yellower than they are. I know I got a big gap in them. Here, let me see if I can. Let's see if I can figure this out. Oops. All right. Actually, that's a pretty good color. Let's try that one. See, some people wish they had. Well, the thing about that is, again, ultimately what Freemasonry formed from was the guilds in the um, Middle Ages. Now, obviously, there were Freemasons that existed well, there were stonemasons that existed in Egypt, right? When they were building the pyramids, things like that. Those are by definition stonemasons. And within stonemasons, they had things like lodges and groups and organizations. Um, interesting enough, the term lodge, as in Masonic lodge, it formed from the term LUD, Lud, which was the tent in which stonemasons would take their lunch and dinner and stuff. Uh, the extent to which they had any faith, the stonemasons back in the day, I mean, I wouldn't be able to say what they were. I mean, could be Jewish faith necessarily, but it's not literal, it's symbolical, right? It's not the literal origins. And I love the Freemasonry for Dummies book, and I think Chris Hodapp does a great job. But again, you don't want to take that stuff literally. Literally, Freemasonry started in the 15th centuries. But going back to what I said before, I mean, the key thing to remember is there is no requirement or even expectation that you would renounce your faith within Freemasonry. That's not how it works. If you're a Christian before you're a Freemason, you're a Christian after you're a Freemason. If you're a Muslim before you're a Freemason, you're a Muslim after you're a Freemason. If you're Jewish, Hindu, Sikh, whatever it might be. Hello, Spoon. Um, 14 days? Okay, maybe they're busy. Um, well, I mean, I don't know. So, Serene, when you talk about it, talks about the rituals. By the way, hello, Dream Seeker. York Rite and Scottish Rite, they're different appendant bodies. York Rite is the earlier one. Um, I'm not a York Rite member. What I would say is Scottish Rite tends to be more a philosophical exploration of Freemasonry. York Rite, I think, is more a continuation of, in some, it was considered for some time kind of part of the third degree almost. Um, Usually people join based on where their lodge goes. I don't know what you mean by correlates with what's actually going on in the real world society. I mean, rituals usually don't correlate with what's happening in the real world, right? They're kind of meant to be separate from that in a sense. I mean, what happens within a Masonic ritual happens within the lodge. Now, you can gain lessons from that and insights from that, and then take those lessons and take those insights and apply them outside of the lodge to your day-to-day life and the real world, I think is valuable. But I'd be very hesitant to, I mean, it's a different thing. It's a different, I don't know what you mean by that, I guess is what I'm saying. Masonic rituals are, exist within a Masonic context. The real world is a very much larger context. No, that is not true, Serene. Grand Masons are not handpicked from bloodlines. Freemasonry has nothing to do with bloodlines. I mean, some Masons will join because their dad or their grandfather or great grandfathers were Freemasons, which is perfectly fine. But I've known many Masons who join and they're the first of their families to be Freemasons, at least the first within their knowledge of their families to be Freemasons, and that includes going up to the 33rd degree. Um, well, obviously during Nazi Germany, Freemasons were targeted as they were in many different times throughout the world. I think within Nazi Germany, it was the most obvious, or not the most obvious, it was the most aggressive. Um, it was the most aggressive targeting, but it's not exclusive. I should be, but I am not. I'd be rich if I was. Hello, Lee Partridge. Thank you for being here. So I've never heard of any 32nd degree or any 33rd degree giving up their wealth. I mean, you have to pay dues. I'm not sure what you mean by what snap filter I'm using. And Freemasonry is not a Talmudic convention. We do not worship any being, entity. Freemasonry is not a religion. Worship is a religious connotation. Freemasonry is not that. What do we learn in Lodge? We learn in Lodge, I mean, it depends. There is no specific answer to that question, right? By the way, does this light look better, do you think, than the other light I was using? Let me know if you have an opinion on that. I think it looks better. So, like, the beautiful thing about Freemasonry, and one of the reasons why it's not a religion, is there is no single lesson that you can take from it. Now, I would say there are commonalities. So, for example, like, what do you learn from being on a football team? Well, you're going to learn teamwork, you're going to learn practice, you're going to learn health and fitness, you're going to learn sportsmanship, not cheating. Um, but those aren't, I mean, those are lessons instilled from just the act of being part of the team. Some people may need to learn lessons of sportsmanship, some may need to learn lessons of teamwork, some may need to learn, who knows what the lessons are they need to learn, but they'll pick them up from Freemasonry. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Within Lodge, everybody kind of takes different lessons. I would say, in general, you definitely learn the lessons of universal tolerance and respect for people, men of different faiths, different political beliefs, different religious beliefs, different life experiences, different ages, different. occupations. You learn skills related to, especially if you become an officer, how to organize and run a meeting, um, how to, memorization skills, public speaking. You can gain confidence. You can learn about the value of being there for others and also, what it means for brothers to be there for you. I personally took a real lesson in temperance from Freemasonry. That's something that it taught me because sometimes I struggle with that. I have a tendency when things are going well to get really excited, when things are going not so well to get really disappointed. So temperance was a very valuable lesson for me. But I think the beautiful thing about Freemasonry is, yes, there are common lessons, but very often, and I've had this experience before where we've gone through a Masonic ritual and I've asked the brother, let's say, who was getting initiated, that was his ritual. I asked him, like, what did you take from that? What did you learn from that? And it's really cool because they have, you know, very different ideas. They have their own interpretations, could be completely different from what I learned or from what I took from it. So I think that's from Morals and Dogma, Serene. Um, Everybody's favorite Mason, every non-Mason's favorite Mason, Albert Pike. Um, Networking. I mean, you can definitely network through Freemasonry, right? I would say it's you need to be incredibly hesitant to join a Masonic lodge with the goal or with the purpose of networking. The reason being, um, first of all, Masonic numbers are dropping pretty significantly. As a consequence of that, the idea that it will necessarily be of benefit networking is somewhat dubious. And ultimately, like, you can networking is something you can do almost anywhere. You're just as likely to find success in networking by joining a sports team as by joining a Masonic lodge or joining a knitting club or whatever it is, right? If you should join Freemasonry first and foremost because there's something about it that calls to you. And from there, the secondary transactional benefits like networking come. But if you're joining for those transactional benefits, like networking, you're going to be disappointed. That's the thing about Freemasonry that you have to be really careful of, the transactional quality of it. At the end of the day, the reason to join anything is first and foremost because you love it. That's the most important thing. That's what matters. That's not transactional. That love will exist forever. From there, there are transactional benefits, right? And when I say transactional, what I mean is, um, co-signed to a specific moment. So, for example, going to lodge and knowing that there's going to be a really good meal that night, that's a transactional benefit in that, yes, you have that meal, but what's to keep you from coming back the next meeting when the meal might not be as good or might be different? Um, or what's to keep you during mentoring nights when there are no meals? Or what's to keep you showing up to clean the lodge, right? And if you do that, you have to do it again and again, right? The first thing that should have you either join and then keep you is because there's something about Freemasonry that calls to your heart that you love. And then from there, you can enjoy the moment by moment transactional benefits like potentially networking and meeting people to give a resume to, or having a great meal after lodge, or developing a new skill set of memorization, things like that. Um, yeah, I've had a few days like that myself, KY. I've had a few days like that myself. Unconditional love is a myth. I mean, that's pretty harsh. Final Destination. I like those movies though. I would not say that's the case. In my experience, Final Unconditional Love exists. I definitely, yes, I got a big nose. I definitely don't think women live on easy mode. That's very silly. Um, I think everybody, if you are alive, nobody, whether you be a man or a woman, male or female, is existing on easy mode. Life is really, really tough for everybody. Um, I think it's very silly to think anybody is living life on easy mode. Life is hard for us all, and we're all just trying our best. Well, Serene, again, who was Albert Pike, and why is what he wrote relevant to Freemasonry, or is what he wrote relevant to Freemasonry? Um, no, no. I mean, I don't know a ton about Hermeticism, or for that matter, Kabbalah, to be honest. I know a little bit about it. There are some parallels within Freemasonry between those two things. So, no, wouldn't affect you joining. Um, what's wrong with my face? I mean, a lot is wrong with my face. What's wrong with you for not hitting the like and subscribe button? I don't know if Serene is still there. But again, if she, I'm assuming she, I don't know why, just the name Serene strikes me as female. It could be male. What it is about Albert Pike and why you think he's so relevant to Freemasonry or the typical Masonic experience, I would love to know. Because I can assure you he's not as relevant as people seem to think. He wrote a lot of different stuff. He was a newspaper editor. Born in Boston. I always thought he was from Nebraska, but he was actually, or Arkansas, but he was actually born in Boston. He wrote Morals and Dogma. It relates to the southern jurisdiction of Scottish Rite. Freemasonry had already existed 100 years before him. 99% of Masons, you know, Albert Pike is completely irrelevant to their Masonic journey and career. I once knew somebody, he was on the stream actually, and somebody mentioned, well, Albert Pike says X, and his response was, I'm York right. I don't give a shit what Albert Pike says. Um, you do. You do learn etiquettes within Lodge. Again, I mean, it's almost, I would say etiquettes is one of the things that if you are dedicated to Freemasonry, it's almost impossible to not learn, right? In that if you take etiquette as meaning the ability to, you know, act politely and with grace within a social setting, you know, within Freemasonry, you have meetings, they're business meetings, they're administrative meetings. People have different opinions, different ideas. You have a chain of command in a sense, or at least a chain of offices. You have to learn how to act appropriately, how to act with etiquette towards brothers with whom you disagree, as well as how to act appropriately to those who are assuming higher offices. I'm a Freemason, Kritish Gar. That's what matters. Um, Hello, Rondo. I did not know he was an odd fellow as well. Yeah, if I recall correctly, he moved to Boston. He moved to, again, I always forget, either Nebraska or Arkansas. I don't know why I can never remember. I think Nebraska. He was a newspaper editor. Um, well, I mean, Albert Pike, again, he was a Freemason. He was very famous within Scottish Rite circles, especially southern jurisdiction of Scottish Rite. He wrote obviously Moore's a Dogma, which is his famous work. I forget the date. Unfortunately, because he wrote that, and every non-Mason seems obsessed with reading it, he was a Luciferian as well, right? That was his own personal faith. It's interesting learning about it. To my understanding, Luciferians, they do not believe that the serpent in the garden was actually the same entity as Satan, the fallen angel. And apparently, and I'm not a theologian, I'm not an expert on the Bible, apparently there's nothing ever written that states that the two are the same. So he viewed Lucifer as more of a Prometheus type figure, like a light bringer, separate from either the Antichrist or the biblical Satan. The problem is he decided to write that in Morals and Dogma, and everybody, including Serene, for the last 100 something years, has taken that passage and ran with it. And also, he was, at the end of the day, speaking for himself. I mean, For example, when if I were to write something and I were to say, in my opinion, or if I were to say the ultimate, Freemasonry is about the belief that the world can be made better through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. That's my opinion. That's what I believe, but I don't speak for all Freemasons. Other Freemasons may have very different views on what it means to be a Freemason. You need to keep in mind when you read Morals and Dogma, you're reading the ideas of one person, not the ideas of Freemasonry as an institution, because there is no institutional Freemasonry, it's decentralized. Lucifer means light bringer, I believe, or morning star, I believe. But again, this is all from one single book, and again, it doesn't. I mean, Freemasonry had already existed for 100 years before Albert Pike ever wrote more than that. Before Albert Pike ever wrote Morals and Dogma, you need to keep that in mind. Slick Rick, sounds like we got some conspiracy theories rocking out the stream. All right, let's give it a bit more time. Let's see who else joins. As always, I did want to talk about a few different things, including the Metropolitan Police and their current status as it relates to their requirement to disclose Masonic affiliations. He did, but nobody seems to believe that is the case. But Masons did not give your cat cancer. Masons, I'm very comfortable saying that Masons cannot give anyone cancer. That is not, we're not magical beings. We don't have superpowers. But nonetheless, thank you for being here. And I hope that you are doing well. Well, that is true. That is true. And Rodolph, you just exposed one of the biggest challenges that we have when dealing with conspiracy theories online, which is the nature of the conspiracy theories. You can always just say, well, of course you would say it's not the case, right? Like if I were to say to you, you know, you tell me Freemasons do this evil thing, I'm kind of screwed because my response is going to be the truth, which is we do not do that evil thing. But of course, as a consequence of saying that, um, you just say, well, of course you're going to deny it, right? Like you kind of put yourself in a position where the denial just further proves the conspiracy. It's one of the greatest, most insipid things as it relates to as it relates to conspiracies, whether it be about Freemasonry or otherwise. Um, what are the benefits of manners and etiquettes? Well, the benefits of manners and etiquette is pretty obvious, right? We live in a society. We have to find a way to get along with one another. In order to get along with one another, a big part of that requires a certain level of manners and etiquette. So, if I'm being rude to my neighbors, rude to my colleagues, rude to people on the street, by acting in a manner with acting without manners or without etiquette, it makes things very difficult. Well, I will tell you, it is not irony or satire for me to ask you all to hit that like and subscribe button. It's very important as a way to help promote this channel. Yes, I've known some Toastmasters. They're great people. And certainly Toastmasters seems to help people develop those skills. We're going to give it a little bit more time. We're going to wait to see who jumps on. Again, wait another hour, wait another half an hour, then start on the main topics. Well, thank you, Rodolph. By the way, don't forget, I will be doing a 24-hour live stream starting January 21st, so a week today. Please make sure that you hit like and subscribe and hit the notification bell and mark it in your calendar. It'll start at 2 p.m. and we're going to be talking about information or requests for information from our members. So if you want to nominate topics, become a member. And I'll, take a look at what you're nominating. Well, I mean, we use symbols. I don't know if you define them as ancient. Some you could define as ancient, some are more modern. It depends on how far back you want to go. But we definitely use symbols to impart lessons. I suppose you could say in some ways, like it imparts lessons of etiquette. But really, to me, the etiquette comes more from just having to work with people of all different beliefs and belief systems. So it's in the nature of the doing, right? Like, if you choose to stay home and never interact with anybody, you're likely not going to have very well-developed manners or well-developed etiquette. It's in the process of interacting with people, oftentimes with groups of people, that helps you, develop etiquette and skills. And so Freemasonry, by its nature of being a universal group, which promotes universal tolerance and respect, as well as respect for offices, you kind of it's inevitable that you will learn, etiquette. Yes. Well, I mean, life is balance, Dream Seeker. They talk about this in Freemasonry. Life is balance. Too much ego, and you're going to be a jerk. Not enough ego, you're going to lack ambition. You need to find that happy medium. I'm a big believer in that as well. So yeah, my dream job is to do this, is to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession. So please hit the like and subscribe button. And consider doing a 99-cent super chat. That helps out big time. So we do not do that, Dinah. When you say look it up, you need to be careful. First of all, you need to, when you're looking anything up, and this isn't just about Freemasonry, this is about life in general, you need to be a little bit careful and recognize that you have the intelligence to look things up. For example, I had a friend who basically he believes every conspiracy theory that there is to believe. But at one point, he was telling me this conspiracy theory about mole children living in underground tunnels put there by the government. And he told me, just look it up, was his response. And he said he had seen pictures of these children on the internet, of these mole children living in these tunnels. But anyways, he couldn't tell me who took the pictures, where the pictures were taken, who was in the pictures. He couldn't tell me if the pictures had been digitally altered in any way. He couldn't tell me what the pictures were actually showing because they were too grainy. He was relying on a description in writing above. He couldn't tell me who wrote the article to which he was referring because it was written by an anonymous source. The point is, if you'd taken that information to court or to the police, they'd laugh you out because you have zero evidence. You have something that could have been doctored by anybody. It's basically, not only is it hearsay, but it's digital hearsay. The fact is, he just did not have the intelligence and the ability to adequately look up the information he was seeing or to properly vet it. He likes to believe in conspiracy, so any conspiracy he believes is true. What I always say is, look, if you want to look up stuff about Freemasonry, then by all means, and you can choose to believe the things I say or not. That's up to you. But how much experience do you have as a Freemason? I've got 20 years as a Freemason, over 1,000 meetings attended around the world, everywhere from the Philippines to Brazil to Bogota to Texas to New York to Manitoba to United Kingdom. I've done my research on it through this channel and on my own. Um, and I have, my reason and my ability to judge things. So if I see an article about Freemasonry, I have at least the capacity and the ability to know if it's legit, not legit, and know why. Whether it's a real lodge, clandestine lodge, whether the image is doctored or fake or baloney, not just images, but news articles, right? Somebody who's never been a Mason, who's never been part of Freemasonry, at least at the legitimate level, because there's also clandestine lodges. It's really hard. When you say look it up, you need to understand you're sending people to information they are probably not in the best position to vet. It's kind of the same reason, not to get political, that I always get annoyed with people when they say they do their own medical research. Medical research is a really hard thing. It's a hard thing to understand. It's a hard thing to vet. In the same way, I don't like people, talking to me about Freemasonry who have not have my experience and my knowledge and my expertise. I'm not going to question necessarily doctors when I've never been to medical school. Just telling people to look stuff up online. There's a lot of baloney online. Um, well, first of all, Dina, do you know what a clandestine Masonic lodge is? Do you know how clandestine Masonic lodges operate? Do you know what it means to be clandestine? Also, how do you know the pictures are accurate and not artificial, are not AI? Um, Also, where were the pictures taken? Whom took them? When you say look it up, I assume you say people dressed up, so I assume you're referring to pictures or maybe an article. Um, I am not 33rd. What would happen if there was no 33rd degree within Freemasonry? Um, the answer is nothing would change for 99.9% of Freemasons. Look, I have no issue with 33rd degree. I know the 33rd degrees. I know some 33rd degree Masons, I should say. They're excellent parts of the craft and the fraternity and great dudes, great men. But for 99.9% of Freemasonry, the 33rd degree is irrelevant. And that includes for members of the Shrine and the York bodies. And also, being a 33rd does not give you any special privileges or authority in a lodge. You can be in a lodge and have, five, have, let's say, 10 33rd degree Masons present and 10 entered apprentices present. At the end of the day, whenever the motion comes up, there's 20 votes, and the EA has just as much voting authority as the Master Mason, at least in Ontario and Emulation Lodge. In America, for example, it would be more likely third degree Masons, but it's the same thing. You can have 10 33rd degree Masons in Lodge and 10 third degree Masons in Lodge. The third degree have equal voting rights, equal authority to speak on a subject, equal authority to bring motions. And if the third degree is the worshipful master, he has the authority of the lodge and of the gavel over all who are present, including 33rd degrees. Judging Freemasonry based on one degree is very foolish, and again, demonstrates a lack of understanding of what Freemasonry is, of how the ranks work, of how the obligations and offices work. And it demonstrates, again, why people shouldn't just look up Freemasonry. Because if they don't have the knowledge and the experience, they're not going to know they're not going to be able to adequately assess and understand the information they're looking up and be able to recognize what's legit and what's baloney. Um, Royal Order of Jesters. I mean, the Royal Order of Jesters, it's an offshoot of the Shrine, if I recall correctly. Um, right? It was always kind of focused on, I don't even know, to be honest, how much the Royal Order of Jesters still exist. I mean, the shrine has been significantly reducing in membership over the years, so I'm not sure how many Royal Orders of Jesters are left. But look, the Jesters, like the shrine was always the Masonic body most focused on kind of the fun, enjoyable side of Freemasonry. They're the ones most known for their dinners and their, driving around the little cars and the funny hats, but also significant charitable endeavors as well with their hospitals, for example. Um, so the third degree is known as the Master Mason degree. It's the highest degree within Freemasonry. After that, you can go on to appendant bodies. You can join Scottish Rite, York Rite, the Shrine. You can join Memphis Mizraim, for example. But that's in Europe, not in North America. But the Master Mason degree, the third degree, is the highest degree within Freemasonry. It's the most important degree within Freemasonry. Um, I do not know who Baron Holtz is. Marcus, it is. I mean, its popularity goes up and down in different areas depending on all sorts of factors. What I would say is, within Freemasonry, it's very popular right now in the Philippines. It's very popular right now in Cuba. It's very popular right now in parts of South America. Historically, it was always more popular in England, United Kingdom, and America, but it goes up and down. Um, well, Dinah, it's reducing for a lot of reasons. I mean, there's this book called Bowling Alone, written by Robert Putnam, which is a great book to read about the decline in civic institutions, whether it be the Masons, the Odd Fellows, the Rotary, churches for that matter, like church community groups, people having picnics, people going out with neighbors. There's a lot of it, so you need to remember that. Yes, like the stream. Well, sorry, I don't believe in summoning or the dark arts. What's the Mason stance on homeless and needy? Just curious. Um, well, Pluto, I mean, within Freemasonry, certainly the value of charity and benevolence is kind of illuminated, and we're encouraged to be valuable. We're encouraged to be, excuse me, charitable, though it's not a requirement necessarily. I mean, I guess I would need a little bit more detail, Pluto. Like, if you're asking the political stance, like how Masons believe that the homeless and the needy should be dealt with on a political level. Like, should we increase the welfare state? Should we rely on more civic institutions and not government programs? Should we, have more law enforcement? Should we have more social programs? Like, every Mason will have his own opinions. Freemasonry is not political. So some Masons may favor more social welfare programs. Some Masons may favor more civic programs. Some may favor like a tough on crime approach and arresting homeless people for vagrancy. Some may want more housing. If you're asking more on a personal level, like what do Masons think, in my experience, Masons tend to be more charitable than others, tend to be more willing, at least on their own, to help out brothers. But what I would say is, Freemasonry, again, I've given this example before. I used to say two, but it's actually three men who would have been homeless were it not for Freemasons. Wow, it's snowing. Were it not for Freemasons stepping in and helping the brother by giving him, financial support when he needed it most. And it kept him and his family, or the three of them and one of their families, out of the streets, out of being homeless, which helps both the brother and the whole community, right? Because by doing so, By doing that, what they do is it means there's one less person on the street who needs a shelter bed, who needs to rely on welfare or government resources or food banks. Um, there's all sorts of evidence that being part of a civic group or civic institution helps you survive when you're struggling, when you're down and out, and keeps you from potentially being homeless. It's also why I've always suggested every Masonic lodge should have a list of every Masonic brother who has a spare bedroom or a spare couch. So if a brother finds himself, let's say he gets divorced and his wife kicks him out of the home, or his house burns down, knock on wood, whatever it is, they have a list of brothers that you can go to and you can stay at their home, while they're getting on their feet. So the brother can call the secretary, hey, this is Bob. I can't stay at my house right now. I need a place to go. Oh, Jim has a spare bedroom. You can stay with Jim. And also, you know, a list of like if the home is accessible. So let's say Bob is an 85-year-old man who cannot climb stairs. You can, you'll know, oh, Jim's spare bedroom is on the second floor, but John has a spare bedroom on the main floor and it's accessible. It's also why I think every Mason should know about, crisis hotlines to call if somebody's struggling and should have information about benevolence so they know where to go or where to send someone if they need assistance from the lodge. And so, yeah, I hope that answered the question. And also should have a list of like food banks and stuff like that. Um, we do not worship Lucifer. We do not worship any beings because Freemasonry is not a religion. Um, well, if you feel called to join, then that's awesome. Again, what you have to do is talk to the local lodge in your area, right? Make sure it's legitimate. Make sure it's not clandestine. The way you do that is you ask them to which Grand Lodge they are affiliated. Um, but I don't know where you're from, Pluto, but what you do is, like, wherever you're from, you could Google search is a good way to do it. Find the local Masonic Lodge. Heck, knock on the door. But if you do knock on the door, bring a letter with you that has your contact info. So if they're not available or if they can't talk to you at that moment, they've got your contact info for later. Um, so when it comes to sacrifice, all you need to sacrifice to be a Freemason is your time. And also, there are dues. They can be as little as $40 a year, as much as 500. It depends on the lodge and, how expensive the town is in which it's located, really. If you're joining a Masonic lodge in New York, things like rent is more expensive. So, you could be paying. So, like the lodge itself, it needs to rent space or it needs to have space to meet. It needs to have money for food and refreshments that it serves to the membership before or after lodge. There are other fees associated with being a club. New York is going to be more expensive than, let's say, small town Idaho, for example. DC, there's a lot of Masonic lodges in DC. It's its own Grand Lodge. Um, yes, I got a big nose. Would there be job opportunities? Asks Mr. Fox. Uh, no, I mean, because you're joining a group with, who knows how many members, let's say 20 to 30 to 50 to 100, the lodge, you'll get to meet people you would not meet otherwise. Some of them may at times be looking for people for jobs and you could apply through, give them your resume. But again, you shouldn't be joining with the expectation of getting a job because that's not how it would work. You should join because you feel called upon to or because you love Freemasonry, not because you want something out of it. No, Freemasons, what, no, maybe. So say what you mean. I'm not sure. So are Freemasonry's finances open to viewing? So if you mean like an individual Mason's finances, then no. right? We're not going to ask any Mason to share his finances with the lodge or view it. If you mean the lodge itself, then yes. Now it depends how open the lodge is being. So, for example, or how on the ball it is, right? But in my experience, every member can ask, for example, to know how much money the lodge has in the bank account, what their dues are going for, things like that. A lot of that, though, depends on how good your treasurer is, because it's up to the treasurer to create the financial reports that he needs to create. And sometimes you have really great treasurers who always produce reports, and sometimes they're busy with other things. Um, but it should be open to the public. Sometimes that happens, Mr. Fox. I'm not going to say whether there is a handshake or not. It's up to you. Um, yeah, that's not always true, Mikey UCC. Well, let me rephrase. So the lodge members are all shareholders of the lodge itself. The building in which they meet, it can be that they're shareholders. In some cases, though, it's more a matter of it's more a matter of like the whatever the situation is. So if it is a temple board, then they're all co-op members. But by the same token, it could be that they rent the building space, in which case there's a landlord and they're a shareholder exclusively of the lodge finances and not the building. Um, right. So what is, when they say Masonic religion, what do they mean by that? Dinah, what do they mean by that, right? For example, have you ever read the um, um, have you ever read the Anderson Constitutions of 1723? Because they talk about that quite well. In my opinion, that's the best example of what is meant by that. And also, who is the top Freemason to which you refer, Dinah or Dina? Because I know the quote you're referring to from Albert Pike. So there's a lot to deal with here. So when Freemasonry was being formed, it was evolving from stone masonry guilds. It was a profession, right? And because it was a profession, and because they worked in a variety of lands across Europe, some of which were of the Muslim faith, of the Jewish faith, of the Christian faith, because they worked in, the Middle East as well. Um, there was this understanding that while they were not allowed, and they used the term stupid atheists at the time, or libertines, they would respect the religious understandings of the land in which they traveled and the land in which they existed, and would respect the religious understandings of anyone who came to be either a stonemason or eventually a Freemason. So they said, the way they put it is, if we're working in a land and the culture and such is of the Muslim faith, then we will respect that faith. We won't be that faith necessarily. We may have our own faith, but we're respectful of the faith, or Jewish or Christian, whatever the land is. And we're also going to respect the religious beliefs of all of our membership. So the Masonic religion is not a religion in the sense of, it's not a religion at all, despite the fact that Albert Pike used that term. It is, because it's not about worship, it's not about threats of damnation or promises of salvation, and it's not about an individual priest or rabbi or organization interpreting it. Rather, it is a religion that welcomes all religions. It is, if you want to argue it, the true religion of to be a good man and true. But each individual is allowed to have, has his own interpretation of that. So to a Christian, his religion will be Christianity, Muslim, it's Islam, Judaism, Hindu, Sikh, whatever it is. He also meant religion in the terms of the way I use religion colloquially. So, for example, I once went to a horror movie convention because I love scary movies. Nightmare on Elm Street's my favorite scary movie, four and five. Anyways, as I was wheeling, I should say, through the convention, um, somebody had a T-shirt on, and the T-shirt said, "Horror movies are my religion." Now, he didn't mean that literally, as in it's a religion in the way Christianity is a religion or in the way Islam is a religion, but he meant it's something that he loves, and he watches them religiously. I could argue, and I could use this verb or adverb. I don't because the way people take it. I go to my Masonic meetings religiously, right? I brush my teeth religiously as well, but I go to my Masonic meetings religiously, which means I have a set time and a set place, and I go there and I try not to miss meetings. That is what Albert Pike meant when he meant religion. He meant it both in the terms of doing something religiously, and he meant in the terms of welcoming men of all different faiths together. So in a lodge, it's not that you have one religion represented, you have every religion represented, which is a beautiful thing. Or every religion can be represented, whether it is or not, depends on the lodge. But you can have Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Sikh, Indigenous, all represented together, all worshiping as they understand it, their own religious beliefs, but coming together to be good men and true, which is the true Masonic creed. Um, and also Albert Pike, he was a Luciferian, but the problem with Albert Pike is he was speaking for himself. He didn't even provide history, he provided a book of philosophy. When I say, to me, Freemasonry is the belief that the world can be made better through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. That's my opinion as to what Freemasonry is and what it represents. I've never claimed that that is what Freemasonry is. Every Mason, including, for example, KY Pitbull, needs to decide for himself what Freemasonry is to them. I can only give you my opinion. Albert Pike was a Luciferian, which is an interesting kind of, I guess, religion or spirituality. It is based on the belief that the serpent in the garden was not actually Satan, was actually a different figure, closer to Prometheus type of figure. I've never met any Luciferian Freemasons. I'm told they exist. I mean, I would have no issue if I met one, because again, it's not my place to judge anyone's religious beliefs. And Freemasonry is not the place to determine what is the true religion. But yeah, and it's interesting. I did learn recently that, again, I'm not a theologian. Nowhere in the book of Genesis does it ever conclusively state that the serpent was, in fact, the biblical Satan who was kicked out of heaven. I'm not an expert on this stuff. I have my own, belief in a supreme being, which is not Christianity per se. But Albert Pike was giving his own opinion. It was published by one Masonic body, not even a appendant body, the Scottish Rite of Southern Jurisdiction. It applies to less than 1% of Freemasonry, and it's very much been overemphasized by non-Masons. Well, but I mean, uh, nobody's summoning anything, Locker. You're getting kind of close to a timeout. Don't talk about other people in the stream. Just talk about me. Talk about how ugly I am. Um, I mean, Vabe, I don't know quite what you mean by that. I mean, like when you say marketing tool, Like Freemasonry, it doesn't introduce people to their religion. Presumably, they'd be familiar with their religion before they join. Um, uh, uh, I mean, it doesn't really add on more beliefs. I guess I'm not sure what you mean. Like, again, Freemasonry, it doesn't. I don't like the idea of, and I've used this word myself, but I'm trying to be better about it, just because it's one of those words that sometimes pops into your head. Freemasonry doesn't really have beliefs. It has lessons, I think is the or even philosophies is a better term. Again, the example I've used it a million times. Forgive me for, chewing my food twice. If you join a football team, there are certain lessons or philosophies as you play football that will be illuminated. You're going to, learn about the value of teamwork. You're going to learn about the value of sportsmanship. You're going to learn about the value of staying fit and healthy, not just for yourself, but for your teammates. You're going to learn the value of hard work. You're going to learn the value of a good diet, exercise. You know, is it, the belief of a football player that teamwork is important? Or is it just a lesson or philosophy that the game encompasses or demonstrates? If that makes sense, right? Freemasonry is like that. Freemasonry is not so much that there's a belief in universal tolerance and acceptance of different religions and different politics. It's more Freemasonry illuminates the value of those things. Um, when you say it's the same as Scientology, um, I mean, I don't know. I'm doing well. Less hate in 2026. We could all use less hate, I think, every year. Um, so, I mean, I don't know a lot about Scientology, but Scientology, to my understanding, is a religion. And again, Freemasonry is not a religion. So you need to keep that in mind. Um, but I mean, I would have no issue with a Scientologist, based on my understanding of Scientology, wanting to join Freemasonry. I've never met a Scientologist who's a Freemason, so it's hard for me to say. I don't know. I know very little about their beliefs. Honestly, part of me is thinking of one day trying to interview a Scientologist on this channel because on these live streams, I'm constantly getting the question of is Freemasonry and Scientology similar? I don't think it is, but again, I'm saying that as someone who knows very little about Scientology. I will say Scientology came, centuries after Freemasonry was already established, and I've never seen any evidence that L. Ron Hubbard is himself a Freemason. So, so Vabe, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. By the way, please hit like and subscribe. There are three reasons why I always point out Freemasonry is not a religion. First, at least in the way that it is typically thought of as, equivalent to Christianity, Islam, whatever it might be. First, Freemasonry makes no promises of salvation nor threats of damnation. If you want to learn or receive lessons on how to better exist within the community and within the world, lessons on etiquette, for example, Freemasonry is a great place to get those lessons. Not the exclusive place, but a great place to get them. If you want to know what's going to happen to your soul and whether you're going to make it into heaven or the other place, if you will, go to church, go to your mosque, go to your synagogue, right? If anybody came to me and said, I attend Masonic lodges every week, so I know I'm going to heaven, I would say you're completely incorrect. You probably are living a pretty good life on earth. What I mean by good life is you're being helpful and kind and good for the community. But if you want to know about your salvation of your soul, Freemasonry is not the place for that. That's for your church. I've never heard anybody of any type tell me, coming to Masonic Lodge will get you into heaven, or not going to Masonic Lodge will take you to hell. That's not what it's about. Second, Freemasonry allows for individual understandings and individual interpretations, right? So, interpretation. So, we have, for example, a ritual book. It's different depending on which jurisdiction you're in, but it is the same throughout a single jurisdiction. So, for example, the ritual book in Ontario is the same throughout Ontario. In Texas, it's the same throughout Texas. Um, right? And what that means is, but so it's the same ritual book. However, there is no single proper interpretation. The words are the same, but the interpretation is different. And one of my favorite things to do is after a Masonic ceremony or ritual, talk to guys and ask them, what did you think of that ritual? What did you think of that? Um, what did you think of that ritual? What did you think of that ceremony? And it's amazing how many different interpretations I'll get of the exact same words, even different interpretations from my own. Um, and Freemasonry allows for that. Within a religion, you don't have that. You have a single book, a Bible, a Quran, a Torah, or even a single like totem, like an eagle feather. But there's also a single accepted interpretation that can come from a priest, from a rabbi, from an elder, from a whomever, from an imam. But you don't get to vote, or you don't get to have your own interpretation of the sacred text. Is one interpretation, and that's the end of it, right? That's why in a religious setting, more often than not, you have a congregation all facing one direction, and you have all facing one direction towards, again, the priest, the rabbi, the imam, who's telling you how to properly interpret the book, the word. Whereas in Freemasonry, if you see a lodge, everybody's facing inward towards one another or towards the center. They're not all facing the same direction because it's personal interpretation and it's personal understanding. And that is not something religions allows, right? And then the third reason it's not a religion is because within the religious context, we're not considered religious for, at least in my understanding, in any tax bracket anywhere. So usually it's nonprofits, depending on the jurisdiction and where you are, and there's different tax rules, different countries, different states. But I've never heard of any Masonic lodge or body being considered a religion for tax purposes. So then what I would say for that one is, um, if the second one doesn't apply, Vabe, then the first two would, which is, again, I don't know a lot about the Hindu faith, but again, Freemasonry does not provide um, any promises of salvation nor threats of damnation, right? I understand the Hindu faith does have an understanding of not just how to live for this life, but what happens to you in the next one. And also the Hindu faith, I understand a Hindu temple may be, considered religion for tax purposes. Freemasonry's not. So I'm not saying every religion will fit into all three of my points, but it should fit into at least one or two of them. The most famous person I met as a Freemason, Damian Sandow, the professional wrestler, which I thought was really, really cool. Um, well, we're 1 hour, 13 minutes in. By the way, I'm going to remind people one more time. Yeah, I mean, that's why I also try to avoid using the term rituals now, even though I use it all the time. I prefer ceremony. Ceremony, people understand you can have secular or non-religious ceremonies. What do I enjoy most about Freemasonry? That's a good question, Les Hate, in 2026, because I, I don't know necessarily, wow, the snow is coming down, how best to answer that question. What I mean by that is, look, I enjoy the what I feel the privileged position of Freemasonry is in that it puts me in a privileged position to help others, right? I have a Masonic lodge, I have brothers, I can potentially help them, and I'm reminded of the value of helping them. But I don't think at the end of the day I ever had a choice in liking Freemasonry. I think there's something about me and my personality that would always be drawn to it. Here's what I mean by that. I'm trying to make sense of this. Um, like, did you less hate? I don't know if you have a favorite song. I'm going to assume you do. Did you choose to love your favorite song? Did you like wake up one morning and say, "Today I'm going to listen to this song and that is going to be my favorite song"? Like, did you make a conscious choice to love that song? Or did you discover that song in whatever circumstances you discovered it and you fell in love with it, right? Same thing with the movie, same thing with the TV show. There is, for whatever reason, or there was something about it, could be a combination of your personality, your upbringing, combined with what was happening at the time you heard that song, what was going on in your life at that moment. All of those things came together and resulted in you falling in love with that song. And it wasn't a choice. Nobody chooses to fall in love, you just do. Freemasonry, it's kind of the same thing. I chose to join because my dad was a Freemason, and I always figured I would join sooner or later. But for whatever reason, there is something about me. It's not even about Freemasonry. There's something about me that just responded positively to it and enjoys it, even when I don't, even when the meeting sucks or the meeting goes long or it's a pain in the ass or I don't want to go to lodge because it's cold and snowy as it is right now. It's really coming down. I still, at the end of the day, there's something about my personality and my just who I am as a person that cannot help but respond positively to Freemasonry. And again, not everybody has that. In the same way, not everybody responds with love to the same song. I love Simple Man. Other people love different songs. At the end of the day, I don't think you choose the things you love. I think the things you love choose you. Um, Yes, I actually did start YouTube because I like to yap, especially about Freemasonry. Well, I wasn't born into it. I mean, I was my dad. It's a weird way to put it. Like, I've known many people who joined Freemasonry who have a lot of family who are Freemasons. I've known many people who were Freemasons who never had any family members who were Freemasons. I guess I don't really understand what you're saying. You're not born into Freemasonry. You can have family members who are Freemasons, but at the end of the day, you have to decide for yourself if you want to be a Freemason. Um, you could have a dad, a grandfather, a great grandfather, um, who is a Freemason. That doesn't mean you're automatically a Freemason. You still have to apply like everybody else. Well, I think you mean, Doug, the Illuminati. Illuminati was a group that was founded in 1717 by Adam Weishaupt. It really doesn't exist anymore. I say they have spent way too much time being conspiracy brained and need to spend more time thinking about other things. Well, Rudy, I mean, I think I know a fair bit about Freemasonry, but what I will say is, whatever you may think about how much I know or don't know about Freemasonry, I definitely know a ton about my own Masonic experiences, having been a Mason for 20 years and attending over 1,000 events. But there's always more for me to learn, and I'm always, could be incorrect. But if people are going to claim I'm incorrect, then one of the things they need to do is be able to combat my experience and my firsthand observations of the craft. Well, great, Les Haight. I'm glad that you're here. I mean, my grandfather was a Freemason, as was my father. Both my grandfathers, in fact, were Freemasons. I mean, if you want to put it that way, you can. I'm just not a fan of the term born into it because it implies that you're a Freemason from birth, and that's not how it works. One of the things that Freemasonry really emphasizes, and it's a beautiful thing, is free will. The desire of you're joining Freemasonry of your own free will and accord. You're not joining, Freemasonry because of, any type of external pressures or anything to that extent. And then if you're born into Freemasonry, there's an implication that you were born into it. You joined Freemasonry without your free will and accord. So I'm not a fan of the term born into it. I was born into a family that had Masons in it, but to be into Freemasonry, I chose to, join myself. So for whatever it's, is the way I'd put it. Hello, Armand. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that, Les Hate. Thank you very much. Um, I do my best. I don't always succeed, but I do my best. Let's give it a bit more time. Let's wait to see who joins. So I did want to talk about a few things. I've actually um, tried to, let's see if I can find it now. Um, post some information on my Twitter. By the way, please make sure you're following me uh, on Twitter, X, all that jazz. Well, you say that. What I would say, light free, is even if I had a daughter, they could potentially be Freemasons. They could join the Order of Women Freemasons. They could join Co-Masonry, or they could join International Order of Rainbow or Eastern Star. When you say bums, I'm not a fan of that term, Gabo. I mean, Freemasonry does not judge somebody based on, I guess, how much money he has in his bank account or how he's living. What I would say though is if you were somebody who is, let's say, living on the street or is homeless or struggling with some type of insecurity, whether it be housing or food, whatever it is, maybe joining Freemasonry is not, the best time because there are initiation fees and dues, and you may have other things to worry about. But I mean, I've known poor Freemasons and more well-off Freemasons and anything in between. Um, Cat, hit that like and subscribe button, Cat9176. A lot of times, I mean, I don't know how old you are, Rodolph or Rodolph. I am 43. In my grandfather's time, Freemasonry was very quiet. Masons didn't talk about it even to their families. I don't know why. Well, I have some ideas as to why. But my dad's generation became a little bit more well known and a little bit more open to talk about. And now we are pretty open to talking about it in 2025. We're pretty open to talk. 2026, I should say. Because I'm so handsome, Kat. Well, if that was the case, then why am I here talking about it? Honestly, in a lot of ways, Dinah is the reason that some Freemasons became hesitant to talk about it because in Nazi Germany, for example, at various parts, there became a lot of misconceptions about Freemasonry. And as a consequence of those misconceptions, a lot of Masons became afraid to talk about it because they were afraid they would be judged. Unfortunately, though, it's a self-defeating prophecy. People like Dinah, 1937, are going to keep on saying what they're saying no matter what, right? Like, whether I challenge him or don't challenge him, he's going to keep talking about it. And if there's no Masons telling the truth about what Freemasonry is, then Dinah gets to run the board and just say whatever he wants. You need to be willing to push back against nonsense. That's not the main purpose of my stream. The purpose of my streams and the purpose of Square and Compass Promotions is ultimately to promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it's located, as well as turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession. Having said that, I'm also, you have to be willing to push back on foolishness. Um, I'm not a Yank, I'm Canadian. I was born in Winnipeg, currently live in Windsor, Ontario. My dad was a So when you say the 50s or 60s, I don't know if you mean he was 50 or 60, or you mean the 1950s and 1960s. In the 1950s, Freemasonry was booming. Like numbers were the highest number of Freemasons that have ever existed in America, anyways, was in 1959 when 4 million were Masons. 4 million Masons, I think like 4.2% of the population, something like that. Oh, welcome, Dream Seeker. Well, I hope the Logical Penguin will like and subscribe to my stuff. And everybody, go to Logical Penguin 90 and support his channel. He's a good dude. I don't know what he talks about. This isn't me, you know, necessarily condoning or I have no idea what he talks about, but he's a good dude. Like, subscribe to his stuff, check his stuff out. It's hard work being a streamer. 1950s. Okay. It was definitely a major boom period within Freemasonry. Animal channel. Okay. I love animals. All right. So I did want to talk about some stuff actually at some point, some actual specific topics. So I've got a few different articles I want to talk about. As you know, I've talked about this before, the Metropolitan Police, which is the largest police force in the United Kingdom, it's in London, recently had a requirement that Met Police declare Masonic links. So if you are a police officer and you work for if you are a Metropolitan Police officer and you either now or have ever been a Freemason, you need to declare that to your supervisor. The United Grand Lodge of England, combined with Order of Women Freemasons, is actually challenging that decision or that requirement in court, claiming it is a breach of privacy and a breach of rights to force members to declare their Masonic affiliations to their supervisors. Um, Um, all right, here we go. So as of this article, which was published 1 day ago in the BBC, more than 300 Metropolitan Police officers and staff have declared their involvement in the Freemasons or other hierarchical associations. I'd really like to know what hierarchical associations are, like what other ones there are. I know what hierarchical association is defined as, which is any group that is required to provide mutual support to its membership. Keep in mind, Freemasons do not provide mutual support to any members committing any criminal acts. We're in fact instructed to put them to advise the authorities. But nonetheless, I don't know what other hierarchical associations are listed. I know Freemasons are listed specifically. After the Metropolitan Force required them to do so last month, a High Court judge said. The Met announced in December that membership of the Freemasons or similar organizations would be added to its declarable associations policy. Officers and staff were required to declare membership, past or present, of any organization that was hierarchical, has confidential membership, and requires members to support and protect each other. The move prompted the bodies representing Freemasons to begin legal action over the force's decision at High Court. The United Grand Lodge of England, also acting on behalf of the Order of Women Freemasons and the Honorable Fraternity of Ancient Freemasons, said last month that it was seeking an injunction to suspend the policy until the outcome of the full challenge. In a court order on January 2nd, which was published on Monday, Mr. Justice Chamberlain said the issue of whether to grant an injunction would be determined by a judge without a hearing this week. He said the challenged decision purports to impose a requirement to disclose involvement with Masonic or other associations. The requirement is applicable immediately. However, there is no pressing need for an immediate interim relief at this stage, given that some 300 officers and staff have already declared their involvement in Masonic and other hierarchical associations. Chamberlain added that there was no suggestion the Met planned to take disciplinary action, officers or staff, for not making a declaration in the next few weeks. The judge also said the force had agreed to consider whether to withdraw the challenge decision in light of representations from the Order of Women Freemasons and the Honorable Fraternity of Ancient Freemasons. The force confirmed that 316 officers and staff had declared a membership to the Freemasons or a hierarchical association. A United Grand Lodge spokesperson said it came as no surprise that many Freemasons complied with the policy, as most of their members are proudly open about Freemasonry. But the person added, while this policy stigmatizes all Freemasons, it is deeply regrettable that those hardworking and honorable men and women that wish to keep their Freemasonry private are being threatened with disciplinary action or sanctions if they do not comply, which I guess as of right now is not the case. The Met is waiting to see the results of the court injunction. Alyssa, I'm very sorry that happened. That sucks. I'm glad you're okay. They said they now awaited the court's ruling on their application for an injunction. The Met previously said it would robustly defend a challenge against its decision, which it said followed a survey of officers and staff that showed 2/3 of respondents felt membership of such organizations affected perception of police impartiality and public trust. Met Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley previously pushed the plan to declare membership as part of widely transparency in the force. The UGLE previously said that reporting requirement could undermine the public credibility of Freemasons and could breach their human rights and rules. It also claimed less than 5% of officers and staff completed the survey on the issue. Masons can be cool and weird, Elders Vault. Freemasonry is a centuries-old fraternal organization with about 6 million members worldwide, including more than 200,000 in England and Wales. Its roots lie in the medieval stonemason guilds, and members still meet in lodges to carry out secretive initiation rituals and ceremonies. I would not use the term secretive. I would use the term private. BBC used the term secretive, not how I would describe it. The biblical figure King Solomon is central to Freemasonry. His construction of the first temple in Jerusalem is reflected in Masonic ideals of self-development and spiritual growth. Members are required to believe in a supreme being, though not be members of a specific religion. Wow, it's coming down. And are reportedly prohibited from discussing politics or religion at Masonic meetings. Freemasons wear symbolic aprons and progress through degrees of membership, with the phrase giving someone the third degree originating in the final stage. So again, I've given my opinion on this. I'm actually one of the few Masons who, at least in my opinion, I'm not that concerned with this policy. I think it's valid to be worried about conflicts of interest. And I think because there's a sufficient number of membership within Freemasonry, conflicts of interest could arise. The best way to deal with that is by, declaring your membership in private to your supervisor, not to the public. I don't think, my concern is, why is Freemasonry being singled out? And, to my knowledge, it is the single named hierarchical organization. Instead of naming Freemasonry, because I don't think that's fair to Freemasons, what they should say is any hierarchical organization with membership that is over, let's say, 20,000 members nationally, you have to declare, is how I put it. Because, again, if you're part of a group or an organization that has 10 members nationally and that's it, I'm willing to roll the dice that conflicts of interest will not arise. And if somehow it does, you can deal with that after the fact by declaring the conflict after you've responded to the situation. But if you're part of an organization that has, let's say, 20, 30, pick a number, 1,000 members nationally, it's far more likely that, uh, it's far more likely now, in my opinion, that a conflict of interest will arise. And because of that, it makes sense to take a few extra moments to declare early. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, UGLE and its partners have a different opinion. I would point out, though, as of right now, 316 officers have declared membership to the Freemasons or hierarchical organization. And it also sounds like, based on this article, the Metropolitan Police Force is not punishing anyone who does not declare their membership because they're waiting for the consequences and the results of both the injunction and the final court decision. So it seems like at this moment, by and large, everybody's acting in good faith. Um, you know, I am not I'm not, again, I'm not one who is who views, for example, what the police are doing. I don't have any animosity toward the Metropolitan Police Force. I think they're trying to deal with a legitimate concern. And the legitimate concern, by the way, is not that Freemasons are out there causing problems, because they're not, at least in my experience, they're not. But when I was involved in, working in the criminal justice field, I was a probation officer and worked in a jail. We were taught it's not just about what you're doing, it's about how people view it. People have, if you're a taxpayer, you have the right to, have your perceptions. And if you're concerned about the potential conflict of interest from a Freemason police officer responding to a call that involves other Freemasons, whether that is based on reality or not, that's still your view. You are a taxpayer and you have the right to that view, and the Met has a responsibility to try to alleviate those concerns, whether they're legitimate or not, right? It's not just what is happening, it's how it looks. So the Met, if there is a genuine concern from members of the public over Masonic conflicts of interest, it's completely fair to try to deal with it in some way. So I don't hold any ill will toward the Metropolitan Police. I do think, again, the fact that they singled out Freemasonry by name is a concern, because that tells me they are falling for conspiracy theories. They should just say, in my opinion, not single out a single organization, simply say any hierarchical organization with a set number of members is required to disclose. Because, look, the same conflicts that could apply to Freemasons could apply to the Moose, the Elk, the Rotary Club, the Motorist Association of England, dozens of other ones, railroad clubs. The potential is always there. I think the way to judge it is not based on a specific organization, rather based on the size of any hierarchical organization. So that's my opinion on that. And again, credit to the Metropolitan Police Force for not enforcing it, but waiting for the courts to make their final decision and allowing the court process to go through. Credit to UGLE and their partners for, again, not telling anybody to not comply, but rather going the proper process, which is going to court and asking the courts to review it. And also credit to the 316 Metropolitan officers and staff that has thus far declared membership in Freemasonry or other hierarchical associations, demonstrating that they have nothing to hide. I think everybody right now is acting responsibly and professionally. I've not heard anybody say anything. I've not heard any Mason say anything negative about the Metropolitan Police Force. I've heard them say negative things about this policy, which is their right to disagree with it, but nothing besmirching of the police themselves. And it seems like everything is kind of processing as it should. So let's just see how it goes, and let's see what the courts decide, both in terms of the temporary injunction and the final court decision. Um, and say what you mean. I don't disagree with you. Again, my concern has always been, why is Freemasonry the one organization that seems to have been named? They should be, not naming any organization, just say hierarchical organizations, or list a bunch of them, but ultimately make it any organization with over 20,000 members. Um, right? That's the key. And also make sure you're being careful to protect the disclosures. So, for example, I assume when a police officer discloses membership to his superior or her superior, it's recorded in a list somewhere. Are we making sure that that list is protected from potential hackers getting it, and that the supervisors themselves aren't going to leak it if they're anti-Freemasonry? Um, well, but I mean, again, keep in mind it's with government employees. I'm less sure about that because I need to know more about like what they're. So for example, law enforcement, it makes sense. But if you are, a receptionist working at, I don't know, the Ministry of Transportation or something, I'm not sure. Like, I wouldn't say every government employee. I would definitely say government employees that are making decisions or responding to calls of either crisis, or that could, um, where there's a potential for conflict of interest. I don't think every government employee has that conflict of interest in every department, right? Like if you work, I don't know, for the Department of Mines, and you are making sure that mine natural resource extraction is done safely, whether you're a Freemason or not, I don't think makes a difference. Hello, Russ Curtin. Thank you for being here. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I am 7 subscribers away from 3,230 subs. Well, you can hate me all you want to, but at least hate me for the right reasons. I'm not a Luciferian, so um, your hatred is foolish. I also wanted to mention, so that is what I mentioned there. I also want to mention a couple other things. Um, January is Quality of Life Awareness Month. I'm going to talk about this more. I do not. I'm going to talk about this more on my live stream, on 24-hour live stream. But I found this article. I do think that Freemasonry helps encourage and grow people's quality of life. Um, I found this article. January is International Quality of Life Awareness Month. This month-long event was first created in 1994 with the purpose of promoting and encouraging people around the world to take steps improving their quality of life. During this month, people are encouraged to focus on what is important to them and make positive changes, like getting more exercise, eating healthier, and finding ways to reduce stress. Um, and they have a whole discussion on ways that you can do that. Hold on just one sec. Well, if you call me a scrub, why would I tell you what degree I am? Jamie, traveling is going well. Right? 8 ways to enhance your quality of life as you age. Again, it's Quality of Life Month. Challenge your brain. Keep your mind active by learning new skills, solving puzzles, and engaging in intellectually stimulating activities like reading or taking class. These activities challenge your brain in unique ways, improving brain function and delaying mental decline. I've seen, and I've actually read some studies that indicate that taking part in Masonic rituals, learning Masonic rituals, practicing Masonic ritual or ceremonies, practicing your work is actually a great way to improve brain function and delay mental decline. Even those diagnosed with dementia or other mental health disorders or mental health issues have found that, taking part in Masonic ritual, it absolutely helps improve the quality of life by improving brain function and delaying mental decline. Can you say Christ is Lord, please? In Nomen Patris 40K. Well, I can say Christ is Lord, but keep in mind, I'm not a Christian. Um, so I'm not a big fan of when people ask me that on the stream because I feel like you're asking me to say something. Again, as somebody who's not a Christian myself, it should be, I don't want to be mocking of anyone's faith. And saying that as someone who's not a Christian does kind of feel that way. Um, 10 horse-sized ducks. Or actually, no, sorry. 100 duck-sized horses. Protecting your skin. Here's a big one for Freemasonry: staying social. It can be hard to prioritize quality time with friends and loved ones in the chaos of everyday life, but maintaining social connections as you age is important for your emotional well-being and cognitive health. Staying social, try picking a recurring day and time, like a Masonic meeting perhaps, to connect, whether in person or virtually, that works for you and your friends or your brothers. Treat it like an appointment you cannot miss. It reduces feelings of loneliness and depression. It improves memory and cognitive function. It provides a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Um, if that is not a promotion for Freemasonry, I don't know what is. Get a checkup. Being proactive with regular medical checkups helps you monitor your health and catch potential issues early while they are easier to treat and before they affect your quality of life. Schedule an annual wellness exam to keep up with routine screenings like blood pressure checks, cholesterol tests, and cancer screenings. Be sure to discuss any changes in your health with your doctor. Early detection of health issues, better management of chronic conditions, peace of mind. Get moving. By the way, I've always argued that we in Freemasonry need to do a better job at including some physical activity within our lodges, both in terms of social events, like go for a bowling night, but even the start of your Masonic meeting. Consider doing some light yoga, stretching, meditation, breathing exercises. All that stuff is important. Staying active can get harder with age for any number of reasons, from health issues to simple lack of time. Regular physical activity is essential for maintaining your mobility, strength, and heart health as you age. Incorporate low-impact exercises like walking, swimming, or yoga into your routine. Aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate exercise most days of the week. Improve cardiovascular health, enhance balance and flexibility, boost mood and energy levels. Eat a balanced diet. A nutrition-rich diet consisting of a variety of fruits, vegetables, lean protein, and whole grains is crucial for aging and health. I've always said we in Freemasonry should try to do a better job at having more healthy food during our lodge meetings. Prioritize quality sleep. I'm the worst at this by far. Practice relaxation. Regular relaxation reduces stress and improves your overall well-being. Practices such as meditation, listening to soothing music, or even making time for a favorite hobby can help calm the mind and body and promote relaxation. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes each day to practice meditation, deep breathing exercises, gentle stretching, or other relaxation techniques. It lowers blood pressure and reduces anxiety, improves sleep quality, and enhances overall mental and emotional health. So what if we in Freemasonry set aside 10 to 15 minutes at the start of every meeting to practice meditation, have deep breathing exercises, gentle stretching, or other relaxation techniques? I've talked about this before. I absolutely think we can and should do so, and I think it would be incredibly helpful. So I hope you'll keep those things in mind as well. And I'm going to be talking about this more on my 24-hour live stream, including doing some breathing exercises. Um, so there's that. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the world's most powerful passport. So I know that's a strange thing to talk about, but to be a Freemason is to be a traveler. When I got my new Canadian passport, I talked about why it is, what it means to have that passport as a Mason, what it means to be a Mason and a citizen, which I think is a very important thing to keep in mind. And and I'm sharing all these on my streams, by the way. A article just came out from CNN, the world's most powerful passports for 2026. When it comes to traveling from country to country without restrictions and enjoying very cool events. My grandfather was a Mason as well. In fact, both my grandfathers were Freemasons. Um, there's an elite tier of passports with more clout than others. The top three passports, says the latest report by Henley Passport Index, are Asian countries. Singapore at number one, Japan and South Korea tied at number two. Um, Number four is European placement. Fifth place with a score of 184 is held by more Eastern countries. However, Canada, Iceland, and Lithuania, we are number 8 in terms of most powerful passports in the world, with visa-free access to 181 destinations, which again shows, why I, as a Freemason, and why I, as a Canadian, am proud to have a Canadian passport. The fact that it is so well respected in the world. In fact, according to this report, more well respected than the American passport, which is at number 10. Um, Passport power ultimately reflects political stability, diplomatic credibility, and the ability to shape international rules. Misha Glenny, journalist and rector of the Institute for Human Sciences in Vienna, says in Henley and Partners report. As transatlantic, thank you, Quinn Cartwright, I appreciate that very much. As transatlantic relations strain and domestic politics grows more volatile, the erosion of mobility rights for countries like the US and UK is less a technical anomaly than a signal of deeper geopolitical recalibration. So I guess what it shows is nothing else. Within Canada, there is a growing sense of political stability, diplomatic credibility, and the ability to shape international rules. And again, as a Freemason and someone who considers myself a professional traveler, both locally traveling within my Masonic district, provincially, nationally, and internationally, I am proud to be a Canadian and I'm proud to have my passport. Hello, Mario knows it's good. Also, Quinn, what you can do is you can share this stream with other people as well. That helps big time. No, that's a political question. I'm not, every Freemason has his or her own views on it. I personally am very concerned about what ICE is doing in the States. And I think it's probably very damaging overall. But again, that's a political idea. So yeah, I'm grateful to have that Canadian passport. I'm grateful for the way it is growing within growing around the world nationally. That'd be really fun, Dream Seeker. Um, I did also want to talk again. It is within Freemasonry, we need to think about, like, you cannot separate the condition of Freemasonry from the conditions of the community, city, or country in which it's located. And that includes things you might not even think about, like transit fare. A lot of people may think it doesn't matter, but I do know some Masons who use public transportation to get to and from their Masonic meetings, or who can exclusively travel to Masonic meetings through public transit. In fact, when I recently was traveling to Chicago, I actually used public transit to visit three Masonic meetings in three separate Masonic venues, all in the same day. And I used public transit purposefully just to show it could be possible and you don't need a car to travel. It is not the Jews. I don't even know what you're talking about, but whatever it is you're talking about, 1 dozen eggs, it's not the Jews. I can promise you that. And that's why I found this article so relevant. Health unit boss joins Transit Windsor, slamming proposed bus fare hike. This is from Windsor Star. Increasing the cost on those that rely on transportation could have an adverse effect on those struggling already. At this point, 1 dozen eggs. I'm starting to think you did 9/11. Let's put him in a timeout for a little bit. Let's go back to this. As City of Windsor budget proposal to hike the cost of bus rides could harm residents' health, the head of the local public health unit warned City Council this week. Transportation is a social determinant of health, just as much as housing, just as much as income, just as much as food. He and several public transit users spoke out Monday against the mayor's proposal to raise Transit Windsor bus fares by 25 cents, urging council to reconsider. Increasing the cost to those that rely on transportation can have an adverse effect on those struggling already. The public health leader's message came during a council meeting on Monday that lasted more than 6 hours, the majority of which was dominated by public delegates responding to Mayor Drew Dilkin's proposed 2026 budget. A desire to see improvements to Transit Windsor, including more frequent buses with more reliable timing, was a common thread throughout the meeting. We don't think about how something like a bad bus ride can change the destination of a life, but it does, and I'm here to make this city own it. She described trying to get across the city for medical appointments with 2 young children and a double-wide stroller. Sometimes, she said, they would let people in wheelchairs get on board and wait for the next overcrowded bus in heat or snow. You can't understand how people like me live. My current household budget is $2,000 for 3 people per month with rent and debts, and yes, medical expenses. You owe the vulnerable a better shake than you are providing. Nate Hope, a representative from the group Activate Transit Windsor Essex, encouraged council to further implement the Transit Windsor Master Plan, an 8-year roadmap for the organization that city adopted in 2020. Transit has the potential to be an economic driver in our city, as it is in so many other communities across Canada and the world. It helps our community get to work, to school, to doctors, to the grocery store, and I would imagine to Masonic lodges and Masonic meetings. At least it does for me. Cities across the world have shown that improved services can lead to increased ridership. Transit investment benefits the city as a whole. We have a great vision in the Transit Master Plan, so let's hold the fees and follow the plan. So again, the reason I bring that up is to point out, there's a little more to say. Speaking with reporters after Monday's meeting, the mayor said the city will continue to make improvements to the transit system. He said his budget allocations more than $5 million for capital investments. We want to get it right. We want to meet the requirements of the majority of users. Do we ever meet everyone's requirements in transit? No. No transit system in the world meets every user's requirements. But if we can help the vast majority, I think we've made good progress. They talk about challenges for students. So I guess what I would say about that is, again, I did my trip to Chicago. I did my 3 Masonic meetings in 3 different venues, all in one day, all using public transit. I've known Masons who rely on public transit to get to their Masonic meetings or to Masonic events. I've known people who, without public transit, would not be able to afford a taxi or a bus or whatever it is, or taxi or Uber to get to a Masonic meeting. Again, we need to pay attention to this as Freemasons. We need to notice these things. If, for example, the public transit in our city is reduced in terms of number of buses or number of routes, do we as Freemasons need to pay attention to that and start thinking about organizing carpools or bus rides? And if you're a Freemason and you think you can't travel because you don't have a car, have you paid attention to bus routes or public transit? Have you thought if that's possible or not? Um, Bus fare is not cheap. And I mean, an extra 25 cents doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up over time. I'm glad you have your brothers and I'm glad you can rely upon them. Um, Hopefully, your area gets better bus and transit systems. I mean, again, when I say I used, I visited three Masonic meetings all in one day, all using public transit. I was in Chicago and Glenview, which is a suburb north of Chicago. As part of that, obviously, what that means is public transit services are better and more available than, let's say, some places I've been to in Texas. But maybe that also means it's worth Masons advocating for things like better public transit. We have brothers, we have potential applicants who want to come out to our meetings. We've shown that having, or even we have Masons who are already Masons, but who, are struggling to get to medical appointments, struggling to get around the city because of a lack of public health. Is it worth advocating for better public transit systems to, support the health, both the social, mental, physical health, and economic health of our brethren? Again, you cannot separate, I've said this before, you cannot separate the condition of a community, city, or town from the condition of the Masonic lodge within that town. And that includes transit services. That includes the state of the roads. That includes, is the Masonic building in an area with high crime, low crime? It includes so many different things. And if you're not paying attention um, to those things, and you as a Freemason are not, paying attention to those things, your lodge is going to suffer. Yes, I got a big nose. So again, KY, I mean, I'm not suggesting they have to. I know people are busy with their own lives, but is it worth the Masonic Lodge writing a letter to, the community saying, or city council saying, we have brothers who need to walk 10 miles to get to a local bus stop. Coming out to a Masonic Lodge gives them a sense of community. It's a social determinant of health. Can we get some more bus stops, please? Um, Well, I mean, some will, Joel. I mean, again, I've never heard of a, Masonic Lodge helping to pay for the transport directly, but I've heard of many Masonic lodges organizing carpools and special events. But public transit, it doesn't just help a brother get to lodge, it helps a brother get to medical appointments. It helps the whole community get to those things, right? We should care. But also, it's just a matter of paying attention to things. Like, let's say you're a Masonic building. Let's say you're a Masonic lodge and you're looking to move locations. You want to meet in a new venue. Maybe the current venue you're meeting at is older, it's expensive, it's too small for what you need. Who knows why, but you're looking to move to a new location. Are you thinking about, is there public transport to that new location? Could brothers who need to use the bus get there with the bus? Is there adequate parking? Like, these are things that you need to think about. I understand we as Freemasons very often want to talk about things like, and I talked about this before, that we want to talk about things like, was King Solomon real? What are the moral lessons of King Solomon? Um, what are the old charges? What does the Regius manuscript say? What does it mean to be initiated in a spirit, in a quote unquote spiritual sense, even though I don't like that term? Do we think about, is there a bus stop in front of our Masonic building that we can get to? Is there a garbage can, located at the bus stop? I brought this up before. We have a transit Windsor stop in front of the Windsor Masonic Temple. It's the 1C and the 4, if I recall correctly. But for the longest time, there was no trash can at that bus stop. And what that meant is, because you're not allowed to bring food or drink onto a bus, people would be drinking a coffee, eating some chips, whatever it is. The bus would arrive. The bus driver would say, you can't bring food and drink on the bus. And because there's no trash can, they would throw it out. Either they would throw it out just on the sidewalk or they'd throw it behind them. And in either case, very often it would either get blown onto or end up on our lawn, which made it harder for lawn care. It made the lawn look uglier and it just made the whole area look uglier. It also provided a trip hazard for people going to the Masonic Temple if they were walking on the sidewalk. Um, so, we knew who to contact. We had the proper apps and the proper contact info. And eventually we um, got them to install a garbage can. These seem like small things, but they're not. They matter. Um, I do not know what the connection is to B'nai Birth. I don't think there is one, Andrew. B'nai Birth, if I understand correctly, it's a Jewish organization or order, but I could be mistaken. Jamie, welcome back. Thank you for being here. By the way, if anybody wants to help out, consider doing a 99-cent super chat. It's a small amount, but believe me, it helps out big time in the stream. So I hope that you will consider helping out. Just 99 cents or a dollar or $5,000. Pick your amount. But it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And we talk about International Quality of Life Month. We just talked about the ways that transportation more in general is a um, social determinant of health. Well, when you say why, because I love Freemasonry. I mean, why? I mean, again, I'm not a big fan of talking about anything in terms of spirituality as a rule. So, for example, there are some people who might say that, and I've heard people talk about, for example, music in a spiritual sense. Some musicians, but some people who just listen to music, they almost describe listening to music as being some type of transcendent or spiritual thing. I've never been one who uses those terms for anything I do. I'm just not a big spiritualism fan. I don't really think spiritualism is actually all that helpful within any organization or group unless it's occupies more of a religious space. Freemasonry doesn't, right? I love Freemasonry because I love being in a position to try to build a better community and world through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. That's something I'm greatly appreciate and consider to be a great something I'm lucky. But at the end of the day, why am I a Freemason? Why do I do the things I do? Why do I love the things I love? I mean, it gets pretty complicated, right? Does anybody even know for sure why they love the things they love? Like if I ask you, why do you love your favorite song? You could say, well, I love my favorite song because I don't know. I love my favorite song, oops, because I like the lyrics, but I could say, well, there are other songs that have similar lyrics. Or if you were to say, I love my favorite song because I love the beat, I could say there are other songs that have similar beats. You love the things you love because you love the things you love. I will not do a backflip. I have no legs. I cannot. Please hit like and subscribe. Burp, burp. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. I think you already actually subscribed and liked, so welcome back. Body, please hit like and subscribe. Well, none of that is true, though, burp, burp. We were not founded by, I don't even know what a Gnostic pagan is. We evolved from stone masonry guilds in the Middle Ages. Well, yeah, I'm the name that has been chosen. I hope you'll choose to hit like and subscribe. It is absolutely the case that you don't, again, you don't choose the things you love. You don't choose the things you love. You don't choose, you don't wake up in the morning and go, my favorite song is, at 10 p.m. As I'm listening to the radio, I'm going to hear my favorite song. You just hear it and you fall in love with it, right? How do you fall in love with it? Why do you fall in love with it? It has to do with a lot of things that probably a lot of it we don't even know. Your personality, your upbringing, what's happening in your life when you hear the song, and other things like that. Uh, Cornerstone, very important part of Freemasonry, very important part within Freemasonry. The idea of the cornerstone as being a symbol, it's where you start. So please take a moment once again to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. I hope everybody is doing very, very well. Let's give it a bit more time. Let's wait to see who joins. I hope everything I said made sense. And I'll be back on at 1 a.m. tonight as well. I do think we have free will because I cannot imagine a test or experiment through which we could disprove it. And because of that, I have to believe we do. If something is unfalsifiable, then, it's unfalsifiable. I have never been taught that I am an architect of the world, nor do I believe I'm an architect of the world. So that's very silly. And it's very much pro family and pro religion. And sometimes I might think it's too much of that, in that within Freemasonry, we are taught to put your family and your deity and your employment ahead of Freemasonry, which I think sometimes results in people not dedicating enough time to Freemasonry, to be honest. But that's my own humble opinion. We're going to give it a few more minutes. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button if you're new to the stream. Thank you, everybody who's joined so far. I hope that you're doing well. And I hope that you enjoyed today's topic. Please, again, mark on your calendar that the 21st, we will be having the 24-hour live stream. I'm going to be doing some testing of some different things. Going to try to do a stream on both Twitch and YouTube at the same time. I have no idea how it's going to work. Well, that means great architect of the universe, but that's not referring to Masons. That is a general term. You can interchange it with supreme being. That refers to, the supreme being, which each individual Mason will have his own interpretation of. So, for example, if you are a Muslim Freemason and you hear the term great architect of the universe, you will be thinking of Allah. Or when you talk about a supreme being, if you're a Christian, it'll be Jesus through the Trinity, or however that works. If you are Jewish, it will be, if you're Hindu, if you're Sikh. The reason we don't use the term God or a specific, religious deity is because Freemasonry is open to men of all different faiths and beliefs. So we use general terms. But we're not, I am not the GAOTU. That's silly. Nor is any Mason, nor are we the GAOTU. It's a term for supreme being, whomever that may be. Again, if you're Christian, then, and you hear, if you're a Christian and you're within a Masonic lodge, and there's a reference to the great architect, you will interpret that within your faith. If you're Jewish, if you're Christian, it's personal interpretations. So, nice try, Warren. You're not as smart as you think because you don't know as much as you think you do, which is a very common issue on this channel, I've discovered amongst some people who join, which is fine. If I'm here to talk to people about Freemasonry, that means I have to talk to people who both, know what they're talking about and are not so sure. Well, that's true. I don't know what I'm talking about either, in fairness, but I like to think I can at least pretend like I do. Um, we are going to hang out for a little bit longer. I will be back tomorrow. Um, or so I'll be back at 1 a.m. and then 1 p.m. So, yeah, I hope everybody is doing well. I have been a Mason for about 20 years, since 2007, October of 2007. So, yeah, it's crazy how long it's been. Time absolutely flies. Well, snow is still coming down. That's a pain in the butt because I got to go to Lodge tonight. Speaking of public transit, I heard about that. I haven't seen it, so I don't know much about it. What I'd say though is, well, people see what they want to see, right? At the end of the day, if you if you were anti-Freemason and you saw the video, I don't know if it's legit or not, but if you're anti-Freemason and you saw that video, you're probably going to be more anti-Freemason. If you're pro, you're probably going to be more pro. Like, what you have to do is what I'd say is anybody who's not a Mason and is watching that video needs to be really careful because you're interpreting without a base of understanding or a break, without a foundation of understanding of what Freemasonry is. It's kind of like me, if I don't know what surgery is and I'm watching a surgery, I might mistake it for who knows what. I need to know what's happening. I need to have a foundation of knowledge on which to base judgments. That's why above, I might, Rondo, that's why, one thing earlier on the stream, somebody came on and said, you know, everybody should look up Freemasonry for themselves. And I said, that's true, you should, but you need to also recognize if you don't have any knowledge or you don't even have the skills to understand what you're looking up, it's very easy to be led astray, right? Like when you say something like, I saw pictures of Freemasonry doing X. Do you know who took the picture? Do you know when the picture was taken? Where? Do you know if the picture was AI or doctored in any way? Is there any contact information for the person who took the picture? Do you know if it was a legitimate lodge or a clandestine lodge? Do you even know what the term clandestine means? It's this idea of, one of the biggest dangers we can have is to have too much confidence. That's even why what I always say is, look, I don't claim to know everything, and anybody who does is lying. What I can claim to know is my own experiences and my own knowledge, and my own observations, because I was there, and I've been there for a lot of it. Yes, I went through the initiation ceremony. I went through a initiation ceremony, and then my second degree, and then my third degree, and then a whole bunch of Scottish Rite stuff. Well, Mr. Young, many Freemasons are themselves Christian and do love Jesus. I'm not a Christian myself, but I have great respect for Christianity and the teachings of Jesus. So, Jimmy Dean, I never give any specifics about rituals. Here's what I will say. At no point in any Masonic ritual did I, A, feel unsafe or was unsafe. Also, at no point was anything in the ritual against my civic, religious, employment, familial, or community responsibilities. Beyond that, there's a leap of faith. Jimmy, if you want to learn about the rituals, you got to join and find out. And there is a leap of faith involved in that, but there's a leap of faith to anything that you do. Going to see a movie is a leap of faith. You might very well not enjoy it. That's what, 2 hours of your life you're not going to get back? Well, I mean, I'm not sure about a dagger per se. There are very often you will find swords within Freemasonry. Usually it's a emblematic tool for a tiler, for example. We don't use them. They're dull as rocks, but it's meant to connect us to our, our Middle Age roots, where if Freemasons were trying to, guard their meetings, They would set somebody outside with the sword to remind people, hey, don't try to break in here. Although even then, there's no evidence of anybody ever using the sword. It's just symbolic. Thank you, the name that has been chosen. Well, Jimmy Dean, Freemasonry is not satanic, so I guess you're all set. I don't know what that means, the first and the last. Maybe have I not, never not missed someone. I guess what I'd say is I try my best to, um, I try my best to not be nervous, though sometimes I get nervous. So, Joe, not every president, depending on how you, because it gets kind of complicated, either 14 or 15 presidents have been Freemasons. The most recent undisputed Freemason president was Gerald Ford. Some argue that Joe Biden is a Freemason because he was made a Mason on site by Grand Lodge of Prince Hall, South Carolina, on the actually one day before he left office. But not everybody recognizes that. I used to know the list. The first was George Washington, James Monroe, Taft. Some people say LBJ wasn't a Freemason because he was exclusively first degree, but I would consider him to be a Freemason. Bill Clinton was a member of DeMolay, which is a Masonic youth group. Ronald Reagan was made an honorary Scottish Rite member, so you could argue he was made an honorary Mason. Um, I don't really listen to Howard Stern, Jimmy Dean. I'm familiar with him because he's so ubiquitous, but I don't think I've ever listened to any of his radio shows. Occasionally interviews he does, things like that, but very, very irregularly. Usually just clips on YouTube if he pops up. Well, Freemasonry is symbols to describe maybe what man should aspire to be within his community. Um, no, I mean, Freemasonry is not a business. So, like this stream, for example, I have Masons and non-Masons and who take part. There's no requirement to do business exclusively with Freemasons. Some Freemasons will, when they are looking to, let's say they're looking to purchase food or cakes, or let's say they need to bake, they need a cake for something, and they know one of their Masonic brothers is a baker. They may try to, they may choose to go to his business over somebody else's, but that just depends on the brother and his preferences. Um, well, I will take it. I'm 42, Heather. So if you say I look 35, you're my new favorite stream member. Do a 35-cent super chat in honor of the fact I look 35. Because most people on here say I look ugly. Um, well, you cannot expose Freemasonry because I'm here talking about it right now. So what is there to expose? We do not worship Moloch. Freemasonry does not worship any beings. Freemasonry is not a religion. Okay, I think we'll be ending this stream in a moment. I don't wear my ring, Joe, because I'm in a wheelchair, and when I wear my ring, it hits against it scratches against the push rim. It kind of sounds like that, if you can hear that. That was a metal can. So I try not to wear a ring as a general rule. I have it, I keep it safe, but um, I do not wear my Masonic ring. But maybe I'll show it during my 24-hour live stream. Well, I mean, there is no single opinion on LGBTQ Freemasons. There's about 850,000 Freemasons in the States. You'd have to ask each one their own personal opinion. What I will say is, I've been in lodges and hung out with gay Freemasons. They're treated the same as straight Freemasons. I think United Grand Lodge of England has an excellent, excellent policy when it comes to trans membership from 2018. But there is no single position on any of these social slash political pick your term issues. Freemasons kind of have a variety of their own opinions. Um, we do not, because Freemasonry is not about confessing sins, so we do not certified Ripper. Um, But thank you everybody for being here. And once again, I hope you are all doing very, very well. Let's give it a bit more time. Let's wait to see who joins. And thank you everybody for being here. Again, I'll be on at 1 a.m. as well. And don't forget to follow me on social media channels also. Hello, Zippo Man. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. We're going to give it a few more minutes just to see who joins. And thank you, everybody. Again, thank you, everybody who's been helping this stream as well. It's been growing quite a bit, and so it is much, much appreciated. And yeah. No, if you donate to the Masonic Lodge, it will not, but there are many Masonic charities that will and that can. Depending where you are, there's almost always at least some type of charitable organization associated with Freemasonry. Anything from old age and care homes to, um, in New York, there's Masonic Medical Research Institute, there's Masonic Charities Foundations, there's Masons for Myths. There are so many different Masonic charitable organizations. There's in Windsor, there's hospice, there's Ronald McDonald House, there's the Grand Masters Charity, there's the Learning Center for children with reading disabilities or challenges reading. So there's so many different Masonic charities. The lodge itself usually not, but even then, many lodges will set up nonprofits or charities to help raise funds to maintain their buildings. So there is that as well to keep in mind. Okay, we are going to end this stream. Thank you all so much for being here. Be back at 1 a.m. I look forward to seeing you all there. I look forward to going to Rose Lodge tonight as well. It should be a lot of fun. What are the restrictions? I'll answer that question quickly. To the start, there's just two very simple ones. You need to be of the correct, to start the process, which is to go and knock on the door of the lodge and express your interest in joining. There is one restriction, which is age. You need to be at least, usually in Canada, it's 21. In the States, it can be between 18 to 21, but you need to be over whatever the age limit that is set is. So usually at least over 18, sometimes over 21. You also need to believe in a supreme being. However, the nature of that supreme being can be pretty liberally defined in my experience. Then you go through the process and you go from there. The lodge gets to know you, you get to know them. But at the start, don't think about it in terms of joining a Masonic lodge. Think about it in terms of approaching them to express an interest. And at that stage, there really is a single restriction, which is make sure you're of the correct age to join the lodge. But after that, they'll talk to you about the rest of it. They'll talk to you about kind of what it means to join and the lodge and what the requirements are and dues and fees and memorization work and supreme being and all that other jazz. All right, guys, thank you so much. I will see you all soon. Don't forget to take care of yourselves, take care of your quality of life and your health. January is International Quality of Life Month.